Welcome back, everybody. Again, we have two guests tonight. Rudy and Lynette Berger have agreed to join us, and we're very grateful for that. Also coming from Ohio, which we'll get into that. So another couple of Buckeyes on the recording tonight. It's a nice dynamic, husband and wife, but also athlete and coach, which we will dive into. Rudy's journey has been about 10 years in the sport. Steadily climbing leaderboards, figuring it out, learning what he needs to do, and then, announcing himself by bursting onto the scene in 2022, punching his ticket to his first CrossFit Games and coming out on top with a first place podium finish. As if that wasn't good enough, he repeats the performance in 2023 and has now another ticket to the age group CrossFit Games down in Birmingham, Alabama, coming up in just about 2 months. So with that, welcome to the show. Glad to have you both with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rick and Jason, for having us.
That was an amazing intro. Wow.
He's good at that. I know he's good at it, isn't he? He's good at research. Mine would have been if it was just us, right? This is why Rick is important. If it was just us, I'd be like, so
how's it going?
Tell me about yourselves. Yeah. This episode is powered by Thirdzy, your go-to for game-changing sleep recovery. Imagine hitting your workouts harder and waking up feeling unstoppable. That's what Thirdzy's PM Recovery Collagen does for me. It's like pre-workout, but for your sleep, fueling your body's active recovery processes without any melatonin or sedatives. Just one scoop before bed supports deeper, more restorative sleep so you can crush your fitness goals. Ready to experience the best rest and recovery? Visit Thirdzy.com and transform your nights into recovery power hours. Thirdzy, because sleep is the ultimate recovery tool. That's THIRDZY.com. Save 20% with code JASONZZZ. Let's get into the show. So we might as well take a step back, right? So Rudy, you're 42 right now, and if your journey started in CrossFit around 9 or 10 years ago, how did that happen? And did you have a background in sports? Give us a bit of your history.
Yeah. So I was a runner and a wrestler in high school. I would say I started running and continued to run like in college, or not with college athletics, but just to stay in shape. I ran after high school up until early 30s, and my wife Lynette, she ran. I think you ran a marathon, and she comes home. She's like, "We need to do something different. I'm sick of running." So I'm like, "Okay." And so she kind of looks around like our hometown in Powell, and she's like, "Hey, I want to try this CrossFit stuff." We had a friend that had done it when we lived in Oklahoma, and we just never really got into it. And I'm like, I'm not digging the group classes. I'm not really that interested. Like, just go once, give it a try.
He thought it was like Zumba.
Yeah,
like
I was picturing Zumba or like jazzercise. So I
got into the group classes.
Yeah, the group classes. And I think it was like box jumps and burpees, kind of like an intro class. And it wrecked me. I was on the floor. I mean, it was horrible. And that day, it affected me so much going, I am so out of shape. I used to be able to just, do whatever I wanted. I think I have to keep doing this. And that's how it started. Me laying on the floor in pain going, yep, I got to keep doing this. So that was the start.
Yeah. So he was a 1 hour a day CrossFitter. Yep. He went to the 5:15 a.m. class and started progressing, kind of set the score for the day.
I was on top of our gym's leaderboard most of the time. And that was for about 7 years. I did that. And then when I was about to turn 40, I told, Lynette, hey, I don't want to go to Vegas. I don't want to do like a crazy party 40. I want to do something active. And so I'll let you jump in.
So he's like, okay, I want to do something active. His birthday is in January. We live in Ohio. We would have had to go somewhere nicer to do something active in that time frame. And I was like, wait, Scott Panchik announced that he retired that season, the previous season. So I was like, he's from Ohio. I'm sure that maybe he has a little extra time on his hands to maybe have a private training session. So I literally Googled Scott Panchik's gym and called on my way from the gym. I had this aha moment. And so this super nice lady answers, and she kind of listens to my pitch, and she's like, "Oh, he's right here. You want to talk to him?" And I'm like, "Sure." Like, I don't really have a plan, but so I bounced.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, shoot me an email. We'll make something work." So that was around October, November. And I, without getting into all the details, I basically just planned this thing with Scott. And for Christmas, I gave him a little card that said, your gift is you have a Zoom meeting with Scott. And he opens that and he's like,
oh,
that's
cool. I get to talk to Scott Pitch.
But also a little like, what am I going to talk about?
Yeah.
And then the back of the card said to plan your training session.
Yeah.
And he was like, what? So,
Nice.
so the training session happened.
So
the planning session happened.
Yeah. Planning section happened. We just kind of talked about my background and, just kind of
Benchmarks.
Benchmarks. And he heard a couple of my benchmarks. He's like, dude, Rudy, you can win the CrossFit Games. I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah, we're like, come on. It's like,
you're so nice.
Yeah. We're like, nah.
Yeah. And so we went and trained with him for a day and a half. It was real early January.
Mm-hmm.
And halfway through the session, he's like, do you want to do this? Do you want to compete? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, say it. He's like, tell me you want to go to the CrossFit Games. Say the words before you leave this training session. And so by the end of that session, I said the words, and we had about 10 pages of notes on just whatever we could download from Scott, because he's just this amazing coach and teacher that we're like, all right, Scott said do it, we're going to do it.
Yeah. So on our way home, it didn't feel real, because here's somebody that we've looked up to for a while in the sport saying that he believed that Rudy had the, potential to make the games. And this is January, let's say 8th. And the Open, it's like 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And up until then, he was doing, like I said, 1 hour a day. Maybe on the weekend, he would throw in a couple extra things, but nothing structured, nothing specialized. So we took Scott's advice very seriously, and I kind of just earned the role of translating. I was like, okay, I had my L1 and I coach at our affiliate that we belong to.
Yeah.
But I had never coached anybody with aspirations of being an elite athlete. So I love learning. So that part was kind of natural. Yeah. And so I just soaked in as much as I could, and I followed pretty much every instruction. And, the Open came around, and one of our, it's like, as you guys know, probably, as you start challenging yourself, you find a lot of doubt along the way. And we're like, are we doing enough? Is this what it's supposed to feel like?
We didn't know how it was going.
So the Open, comes around, and we're like, we feel like he's fitter and he's getting better. And so our daughter at the time was in gymnastics, and we spent like almost 20 hours a week in the gym and on the road. And so he does the workout as soon as it comes out.
Yep.
And we put in our
week
score.
1 of the Open. Yep.
Yeah, week 1 of the Open in 22. And we put in the score, and we keep watching the leaderboard throughout the weekend, and he's like in first. And we're like, maybe the good people haven't put in their scores yet. He wins.
Right.
And he wins the event. We're like, okay, I think it was like a sign from, heavens that we're like, all right, you're on the right track. Like, it was just one of those little like messages that we needed to say, okay, keep trusting the process.
This is working.
Yeah. And so every time that we would kind of get ahead of ourselves, Scott would be like, no, your focus right now is execute on the Open, and then quarterfinals. And then little did we know, we found ourselves getting ready for semis, and it was the same super like stressful, like all these names that we knew and looked up videos of from previous games, and he was in the mix with them. And so it was really, really cool when he punched his first ticket. It just didn't seem real.
It didn't seem real.
Yeah. I have put my own stamp on his programming and the approach.
Yeah.
But Scott is 100% my mentor and my coach. Like, I trust that guy. Like, he is such an amazing human and athlete, but he is like, he's meant to be a coach. It's just what, like, his passion just radiates. And it doesn't matter what the question is or the it's just always ends up being a coaching session, and it's like absolutely my favorite. You know, we stay in touch very often, and like if there is a question, I always shoot him a text, or like for example, a couple weeks ago, he had a work trip that happened to be in the mentor area. Yeah. So we made it a point to train with Spencer and caught up with Scott. Yeah. So for sure, like, and he, like last season when he was competing, we went up there for a week. Yeah. And then he came down here and stayed with us for a long weekend. So the relationship, while I still see him as my coach and mentor, I think it's more like a friendship now. And we just honestly, like, we're like one big team. Like his wife took on the semifinals and like, I mean, she did incredible. Mm-hmm. And it was like we would have debriefs every night and kind of plan for, because they were both doing it. So it was just a really cool process. It's definitely evolved. And like along the way, he's reassured me, like, for example, back to 22, after Rudy qualified, Scott got hurt with the the knee injury on the rope climb. Yep. Remember? Yeah. And I panicked. I was like, up until now, we've basically been following your programming, because at that time he had an app where you could just do what Scott was doing. Anybody could. Like it was okay. And so I was like, what are we gonna do now? And he was like, don't worry, I got you.
So, you know, Lynette's talking a lot about how, you know, Scott Panchik has been her mentor, our mentor, but I'd say now that she's been doing this and coaching me, you know, an athlete it'll be almost 3 years. She stands on her own. She absolutely does. And I think she should share what she's actually been getting into lately, because she's kind of spreading her wings a little bit. So please tell them, share them with what you got going on.
So it's been really cool. I had the opportunity to go to the West Semis with a new athlete that I have. His name is Max Krieg. And he like I said, went to the West Semis. He did extremely well, and it's a new relationship. And to me, it's an opportunity to just pay it forward in a way, you know, like all the things that I'm learning, just share as much as possible. And it's just extra special, because it's one thing to be in the Masters space and give back to the Masters community, but when you can also be in somebody's team that is in the earlier age groups, you know,
the younger.
Yeah. So it's really cool. Yeah. So
congratulations,
Max.
Picking up other athletes.
No, Max Krieg. I think I know Max. Was Max at one point? I mean, he's got a military background. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So I trained with Max in Pensacola. So when I was in the process when we were traveling around in our RV, we ended up in was it Pensacola? No, I'm sorry, Panama City, Florida.
Yeah.
And I wish I remember the CrossFit gym. It's probably Panama City CrossFit. I just don't remember. But whenever I would go somewhere and we'd be there for like 2 or 3 weeks, I'd go work at a gym, and eventually I'd find where their competitors are, right? Yeah. And then Max and I started training together. Super solid dude. So for the past couple of years, I've seen him in semifinals. I'm like, oh, there's Max. Oh, right. Very strong. Like I remember one night, like we're doing like sled pushes and biker and just murdering ourselves. And I'm getting murdered. He is young and very fit. He's very, very, very cool dude. That's awesome that you're working with him. I think he's got tons of potential. And
for sure. He's actually visiting. He's getting here on Sunday. He'll be here Sunday through Thursday. Yep. So Rudy will get quite the little training partner.
Oh yes, somebody younger to be able to push. Yes, that's always good.
So as you continue that journey in that first year, right? The Open, quarterfinals, semifinals. Now you're at the Games, and so 2022 was the rookie year for both of you at the Games. Correct, What was that like? You know, what was your experience like? You're in Madison; it's brand new for both of you. It's not, you're not walking in here with a ton of experience, and you just got to go with it.
it was like, I mean, it first started out as just like a dream. I was like, okay, we made the games, we punched the ticket. It is just the bonus to go and participate, right? You get all this free.
Yes.
You get to, patronize with all the like elite athletes, which, my two kids made it like a challenge to see who could get the most selfies with like an elite athlete. And it was so exciting. And I remember, from my first to my last event, like I ran on that floor with the biggest smile on my face because I couldn't believe I was there. And we had 40 people there from our gym travel just to watch me. And so we had like quite the cheering section. And it was just so, so fun. I was just so proud. And it was
fun.
I couldn't stop smiling. And we get to day 3 and I'm tied, I think I was tied like a 3-way tie for second place. And Scott Panchek reminded us, is like, hey, if you want to stand on top of that podium, you got to win some events. Second and third, right?
And we're like, we're trying.
We're trying to win. But it was almost like that third day.
And that third day, you've got the swim event.
Yep.
You've got the echo burpee sandbag.
Oh yeah.
Carrying Karen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's some great opportunities. And I kind of had to say, okay, this is fun. This is great, but I can actually win. Let's buckle down. Let's get going. And I went out and won that first event, like that, heavy man, whatever, the strong man, carrying Karen.
Yeah.
And I won. Like, after I won that, my confidence just exploded. And I was like, I'm going to take this thing. I don't care, what I have to do. And, we did the pool ski erg workout, which I had practiced a ton ski erg. So won that one, which was just incredible. And it was just like the third event that day. The third event of the day was my strengths. It was like, yep, I can do echo bike. I can do burpee box overs. I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the
sandbag was
the sandbag at the end.
That was a little heavy, but I knew, at that point I was like, wow, I can take this. And it was just, I went from being, this is a bonus to make it to like, oh my gosh, I'm going to win. Wow. I won. I can't believe it.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was just
like just a what do we have here? Just a 6 second. You were second by just 6 seconds, and that was enough points wise to secure stand on top of the podium over Kane Hayes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think he had to be third or better to win. I think that was kind of math worked out to be. And so from my perspective, here I am, like, just being the most positive, the most supportive. I mean, like, I packed so much food as if we were going to be, like, trapped in that warm-up area for the whole 3 days. Like, I carried these heavy bags around. It was just comical that we've learned so much since.
Yeah.
But every time he would go out on the floor and come back, he's like, I don't even care how I did. That was great. That's the best I could do. Like, he was just so happy.
So fun.
So day 3, like he said, Scott was like, you need, like, if there is a tie, whoever has the most wins is gonna win.
Yep.
So it's funny because for warming up Karen, we have a lot of strong guys in our age group. So like Justin King, a beast. Alexander LeVay.
Very big guys.
Who else? Aaron Belfield. Like, they were tossing that sandbag onto their back as if it was
the hustle. What is it? The hustleful bag.
Yeah, that orange thing. They were just tossing it up like no big deal. Rudy goes to warm up and basically eats it, and I was like, "You look great. You look great. That looked awesome." And deep down, I was like, "Oh gosh." So then he wins that. So our crew freaks out because we have 40 of our closest friends there. Then we are going into the pool event.
Yeah.
He jumps in to warm up. His goggles fall out. I'm like, oh my God, does this guy even know what he's doing? I am so like on edge that I almost fall into the pool because I was like, oh my gosh, his goggles, like, are his contacts in? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. So we had a lot of memories from that first games that it was just so cool.
Just very special. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so then
I might.
Time we're referring to it as this is once in a lifetime, right? This is
right.
One and done.
Yeah, one and done. Yeah.
So then on our way home, he's like, are we doing this
We're
again?
gonna
And
run
I'm
it back?
like,
Yeah, we're gonna run it back.
we have to.
Well, that
That's why-
kind of leads into my question. Now that you have won it, like Jason, you carry around a target on your back. So how did your outlook for let's see, get my years right. How did your outlook for 2023 change moving into that, knowing, okay, we put a plan in place and we've executed and it's worked. How do we do it again? What else do we need to address? I'm sure those conversations, were had maybe early on, but if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, after the games, I think I took 10 days off, which I think was too long. I didn't do that.
He's like, I don't want any protein. I'm just going to eat carbs.
Eat protein for a week.
Interesting.
Yeah, about 2 weeks after that, we sat down and said, okay, if I need to, I need to stay in front of whoever's aging up, right? Start to think about that. I have to be more fit, or at least as fit as I am, but then we need to start bringing up all those, what I perceive as weaknesses. And that's really what we started to address is bringing up those weaknesses to where they were, I like to say it, they were weaknesses of mine because they were still kind of like,
Taking your
felt
confidence.
It was a lot had to do with confidence, bringing that confidence out, but it was still things that I felt where I was still I like to say an average CrossFitter at a certain movement, not a competitive CrossFitter. So there's several things that we had to kind of go backwards and break down to the fundamentals to get them to where this has to now be more solid, more elite level than the average CrossFitter. So we had to do that a lot.
And I would say we also had the privilege of having an off season because we never we started this journey in January. So right. We didn't have a lot of time to, and then just to point out, the CrossFit Games was Rudy's first individual competition.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, to say that this is a unique situation is almost an understatement because we didn't know what an off season was. So after the first games, we're like, okay, so now you kind of take a look back and you're like, let's make an actual plan on how to be strategic about it.
Yep.
So you could roll into 2023 with a plan, and that sounds great. I mean, an off season, what do I need to address? Who's coming? Just kind of a whole global landscape of the 40 to 44-year-old division, and stay healthy. That's another thing.
Yeah.
And now, do you work both together on nutrition? Is that something, or do you employ somebody else, or is it just kind of, have we common sense or best practices?
Yeah, she cooks and I eat.
Oh God, that's good.
She actually gone through nutrition training and actually does consulting with a lot of the athletes in our gym, and so she's transformed our family in the last 10 years.
Yeah, that started way
before. It started way back, and so that was something that we just had already part of our life, which is I know that's a really big deal. Grateful for that.
Yeah, I would say that the nutrition thing was pretty dialed in even before the CrossFit Games were a goal. What was eye-opening was the amount of additional calories that he will be consuming during the season for sure. And the he's not big into supplements or whatever, but he didn't use anything. He just drank water. So we learned about electrolytes and other things to make sure that whole nutrition picture is complete.
Yeah, hydration. And,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, so back when Scott, it was supposed to be 4.5 hours, and it turned out to be 12 hours. So after each piece, he would be like, "What's in your shaker?" And Rudy's like, "Water." He's like, "Do you have any carbs?" And he was like, "I don't know. The kids have some cheeses in the car or something." And I was like, "Oh." So he was pushing all the carbs, and so yeah.
Well, you're training over the last, we'll even call it 3 years now, from 22 to 24. I know it's maybe revisionist history, but can you noticeably feel a difference in your recovery because of what you're addressing now that you might not have addressed
Oh,
just in the summer of 22 or in the spring of 22 as you're beginning this process?
oh, for sure. I mean, just on my recovery alone, as far as and really what most of that is getting proper sleep and proper sleep and proper rest. Like when you have a rest day, I now actually rest. A rest day used to be like, all right, I'm going to mow the lawn, spread mulch, go shopping. But no, it's like, no, when you're resting, you sit down, kick your feet up, and actually let your body rest. That's made a huge difference. I have recovery protocols with like ice baths and mobility. I do a ton of mobility at night. That's most of what, and those things have made a huge difference to where I feel like I am more recovered to be able to train every day.
I tell you, you can't shout that from the rooftops any better than that. And it's what Jason, my goodness, how many times can you preach that? But if people aren't listening, it really does matter. All of the things and the whole, well, you only might spend 2 or 3 hours in the gym, but what are you doing for the other 21 hours or something like that? It really, really does matter.
And it's hard.
As masters athletes, right? It's the protocol for masters athletes. It becomes even more important because we need to squeeze out as much as we can from every training session. And if we don't have proper recovery, we're not getting the most out of a training session. We're not moving forward. And like you said, it does start with that. Like if you're not sleeping well, hardly any of the other stuff matters. Like ice baths don't matter if you're not sleeping well. Sauna, contrast therapy, thousands of dollars in supplements don't matter if you don't sleep. So it's free. Sleep is free, I think. It's even cheaper if you don't watch like Netflix till 2 a.m,
Yes, very true.
Don't do that.
So during the off season, now that that year you've had one competition under your belt, not a major, any competition. You've got one logged. Okay, so check that off. I know I've seen you at other competitions. What have you competed in since then, and why? What competitions do you choose to compete in? I know that we've crossed paths in a couple of competitions because we chose to be there, and we've also talked offline about like not doing certain competitions for certain reasons as well. Could you guys talk about what that timeline has looked like?
Yeah. So after the games, I remember getting, like the invite to Legends, the invite to Wadapalooza, and I'm like, oh, invites? I don't have to do qualifiers. Yes, we're going. Like let's just keep this rolling, And so I was excited, and we just kept rolling through the fall. Obviously took kind of like an off season, but then we went right into Legends in December, which was at CrossFit Mayhem, which was an unbelievable experience. That was really special. Really loved that. And then we went to Wadapalooza too, which was, that's our first time going to Miami. And like me and Lynette actually went without our kids. So like that was a great time, So it's we kind of lived it up through that. And then we go into 23. We train. We win win the games a second time, which is I'll just kind of skim over that. And we went into that next off season. And we ended up doing Masters Fitness Championship because it was something different that we wanted to try. And we'd heard about it. It was so great. And I'm so glad we did because it was a fantastic competition. Met a ton of people. Yeah, Jason, we were hanging out with you there. And Rick, both of you guys. That was really exciting. And then we didn't do Legends just because of work. Work-wise, it was a pretty good trip to, I think it was in Phoenix, right?
Yeah. It's a big travel commitment.
Had some FOMO during the period though, because I knew a bunch of people there, and I'm like, that looks like it was awesome. And but I was able to do Wadapalooza just because Miami in January, like that was one thing that we locked in on, and so that kind of left us at Wadapalooza, and then starting to train for 24.
Yeah, and our friends were like, we want to go to Miami, so please go. And if you don't go, we're still going. So we're like,
going. They might be there with the Rudy fatheads, the big Rudy fatheads, but you would be nowhere to be found, but they'll still be carrying them, walking around with them, right?
Yes.
So one thing I've noticed as a fellow competitor, right, not in the same age group, so it makes it kind of fun because we can always strategize together. But at competitions,
whether it be the CrossFit Games or having questions about the games. And interestingly enough, I mean, I've been at all these competitions with you, from the games to Mayhem to Wadapalooza to MFC to the games, all that stuff. I've been this with you guys, but I know that a lot of the time I talked with Lynette behind the scenes. We'd be sending Instagram messages back and forth like, hey, did you get notification of your drug test from CrossFit? No. Have you heard anything about prize money? No. How about you? I mean, there's just all these questions that like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know when we ever get paid. It's months. If you just want to know, it's months and months and months later. But even in the competition like at MFC, I know that I didn't interact with Rudy nearly as much as I did with Lynette behind the scenes. I'm warming up, and Lynette and I are strategizing on. I remember there's one workout, for example, that had rowing, heavy deadlifts, legless rope climbs, and then max handstand walk within a specific time frame. We had a few rounds of that, and Lynette and I are just strategizing. I'm like, man, what if I don't get through the rope climbs? How are they going to count all this? She's like, just finish the workout. That you don't even have to worry about how many points you get. Just if you finish, you have a time. I was like, I'll just finish it. That sounds like a good plan, which I did. But it's always fun to be able to strategize with others out there. So all of that to say, that was really a fun anecdote, but all that to say that Lynette and Rudy, I think one of the advantages that you have as a team in this is that Rudy, you can have a laser focus on whatever you're doing, whether you're preparing for competition, warming up for a specific event, whatever. Lynette can be doing a lot of the dirty work, right? She's got to come to work strategies, see what Grub's up to, all this kind of stuff, and then
keeping
report
eyes
back
on the competitors. Yeah,
totally. And like, hey, let's see what Kane Hayes is up to. It's like, Lynette, I'm going to hire you this year for the games to do recon for me too. Like, I need eyes on the floor. So, let's talk about what that's like for you guys. And Lynette, obviously, you have to enjoy this, or you wouldn't be doing it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I'll let him go first.
Yeah. So Jason, I'm really glad that you explained, how, Lynette is like the brains of the operation. She absolutely is. And I'm blessed because that's how she does it all the time. So like I have a full-time job and I'm working, 40, 50 hours a week, and she is taking care of all those logistics in the background to ensure that I get recovered, I get fed, and I, train properly so that we can fit everything in during the day. And there's no way I'd be able to do that if I didn't have her logistics mind to be able to control all of that. Because, the only thing that I have to worry about is being able to, close the work tabs, open up my workout tabs, and concentrate on my workout. She just takes care of all that for me. I wouldn't be able to do it, honestly. So if you want to win the CrossFit Games, you got to kind of have a Lynette. It's really like
I will say, like, I think it all goes down to something super foundational. Like, we both respect and trust each other's roles blindly.
Correct.
Like, I know 100% without hesitation that when he closes his work tabs and shows up to the gym, he's going to do his absolute best every single time. So that is his role. He needs to show up and execute and communicate with me when something isn't feeling right, or when it's too much or not enough or whatever. My role is to make sure that he is focused, and I take all of the other things out of his plate. And so as long as we trust each other and like we each, like, I want this for him as much as he wants it.
Absolutely.
So it's just, it works really well. I will say that, for example, he doesn't even know what the workout is until he's done with his general warm-up.
Yep.
Like, and because...
Just don't even look.
And he, like, I don't even have it written down. I have it kind of in my mind. I have it, like, I kind of have a map for the week based on how he's feeling, what he needs to work on. But after he goes through his general warm-up, I'm like, how's the body? What hurts? What doesn't feel right? And depending on that feedback, depending on that answer, which most of the time is, I feel good. I'm like, that doesn't work. You know that. It's the third year. Don't give me that answer. Give me more. Then I'm like, all right, then we can do this. And so it just really works that way. Most of the time, he doesn't even know what his second piece is. No. We just kind of go piece by piece, and I enjoy it. I take pride of it. I take responsibility for his performance. But it's really like we both pour in the same amount of effort and passion into it. What I will say too, that one of the harder things is he's also my husband and the father of my children, and most importantly, I want him to be healthy and able to do this for as long as possible. So sometimes I catch myself kind of being almost in the too safe of sides. You know, it's like, oh, I know I have to program this, but like, don't really like it, or it's too heavy, or so I have to kind of push myself outside of that like wife kind of lens and be like, all right, he needs to. So it's a kind of a fun balance.
I think she enjoys that sometimes. She's like, oh yeah, 150 GHDs, let's go.
Right. Yeah. You know what he needs? A good session on the Echo bike. I'll tell you what. Let's do some Echo bike sprints today. Okay, for mouthing off. No, so
we'll see who gets the last laugh now.
Yeah.
The actual question actually is, I've had businesses where I worked with my wife in our previous business. I worked very closely with her, and we had great synergy 90% of the time, 99% of the time, and then 1% of the time we did not have synergy, and that was always so much not fun. Do you guys ever find yourselves a little out of sorts with each other?
So yes, but the beauty of it is, you know, we have to work together, and so we have to get things figured out and resolved before we move forward, because we don't have time to sulk and be mad. I mean, we just have to address it head on and move forward. But one funny thing, so and I'll this is a quick story. We decided to buy a property that has a barn, and so because our house, we've kind of outgrown, all our kids do CrossFit, and so we just wanted a workout space, so we actually bought a property with a barn. And it's kind of been a heated topic, because I can work on that barn 24 hours a day, but I have to train, I have to do my job, I have to be a husband. And so that's kind of a point of contention right now, because I'd like to work on the barn at all, but she knows
you're just ready.
Recover, and then you can work on that barn. So it's kind of funny.
I think the biggest part of contention on that is that I am the designated construction partner.
Well,
and when he invites me to do a little framing, it's not the typical framing you do in your basement. This is like 20 feet up in the air, carrying like 80-pound boards, and it's just the two of us. And I'm like, oh, la la la. I'm like, no, So.
If I could be a fly on the wall, let's see. September 1st is Monday, Labor Day. That's the day after the game. So September 2nd, if I could be a fly on the wall,
we get to work.
Your household,
you better get
there. That's when the real work starts.
Oh yeah.
Barn, communication. Look out.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the month of September. Can we check back in with you both? Say October. How about that?
Yeah. Yes. We'll hopefully we can stream it from the barn.
Yes.
We can show you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Man, we'll just come up there. Like, I mean, we won't be that far away if we all go to MFC.
Right.
Like, I'll just drive over, right? And we'll do a workout session in the barn. We'll document the whole thing behind the scenes.
Perfect.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got it.
There. You have a deadline.
And,
I'm marking it on the calendar right now.
And you mentioned the kids. How old are they?
14 and almost 13. So Leah is 14, the oldest, and Mason is almost 13.
Yep.
Okay. And you said they both do CrossFit. They both understand how much of a part of your lives it is, and they've been drinking the Kool-Aid along with you.
Oh, they have
as a family. That's wonderful to hear, because that's not always the case.
Yeah, no, they love it. We brought them, along. But they grew up in the gym. They know all the gym members. They were in the kids' room when they were 2 and 3, and so our daughter Leah, she did really good in the Open this year. She's old enough as a teenager now, and she qualified for quarters. But she's
doing track.
She's doing track in cross country, and so she really likes those team sports. And so we aren't pushing her into that. Hey, you should go into quarters and semis, which she had done fantastic. Yes, absolutely, she would have. I mean, she presses me on workouts already, but we're not pressuring either of them into eating at an early age, and especially with how sensitive it is to a lot of the female athletes in the CrossFit world. We don't want her to have some of those pressures that those athletes deal with. So we're not in a hurry to get her involved.
As a track athlete and a cross country athlete, she will probably receive even more greater benefit from using CrossFit, the methodology, as a training tool to supplement what she's doing.
And she has 9 years of gymnastics background too, 10 years. So she's kind
no
of
pressure, no rush. Yeah, you're building the foundation, and that's what's most important.
Exactly.
It's really cool. And our son, he is so into lifting, and he is like a little
He's a wrestler too.
So he don't like running and stuff, but he loves a good lifting session with Dad.
He thinks when you go to the gym, you take off your shirt.
Oh,
it's like what?
It doesn't matter what temperature it is.
We are talking January in Columbus area.
Shirts off.
Yeah.
Shirts off. He has a beanie, no shirt.
Yeah.
That's what works.
Yeah.
So what does the future look like for you guys? How long does this keep going? As Masters athletes, obviously we have a long runway. You're 3 years into this journey. I'm 5 years into this journey. This is my 6th CrossFit Games coming up. I just realized that today as I was working on a video, and 6th year as a CrossFit athlete, which is wild. What are your thoughts about the future? Actually, 2 parts. What are your plans for the future, and what do you think about the future of this sport?
Okay. So, my plans are to keep going. This is as long as, some sort of a balance doesn't change within, the family dynamic or work, and we can keep going just like this. We absolutely will. We enjoy it. This is our passion. We're modifying a barn to be a gym. So that's quite the investment in the future. And I just want to keep going because I know, in the big picture, this is CrossFit's such a part of our life. It's we're still involved in our community, and that's just it's what we do. And and as long as we can keep doing it, able-bodied to do it, we'll continue to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think as the kids grow up or grow older, it'll be really cool to see if they want to get more competitive into it.
Yep.
We'll kind of have to take that year by year.
Yeah.
But as long as Rudy's healthy and he enjoys it,
yeah.
Because with him, as many master athletes, balancing whether it's a corporate job or whatever occupation they may have, the CrossFit training is truly what allows him to follow his passion. So for me, if it wasn't this, it would be something else that we would be pursuing to have that passion. Because
absolutely.
I think that's what keeps you alive, and it keeps you getting better. Because if you stop learning or challenging yourself, it's like, what is the point? So I think from a more like a personal perspective, I think that's part of the reason why this is important to keep improving.
And if you keep picking up elite athletes, you're going to be busy for years.
I was going to say, there's a growing business there.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well,
the other question was, what do we think about the future of the sport?
Yeah, future of CrossFit.
Yes,
I would say, I'm excited for this year because it's different. I like change. I like things that are different. And I feel just in general, CrossFit goes through a lot of changes over the years. They're going to continue to do that. It's more, that's kind of what they do, their MO. So I'm not that concerned with wherever it's going to go. I think it's going to be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for he's like the happy show up and do the thing. I'm more like, okay, this logistics, I'm the one that works more about what's changing and how it's going to be managed and all that. So
See.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, yes, I could have my opinions and stuff, but it is what it is. In whatever format it's presented, we want the sport to keep growing and to be, more accessible for people. So we want to support it and be positive role models in, the capacity that we can. So more people are willing to try it, regardless of whether they're 32 or 62.
Yeah.
Or 12. So
You're
that's
right.
kind of
Or
our
12.
Yeah.
Well, we have less than 2 months now, so we certainly want to wish you both luck this summer. And where can people find you out there on social media or? Because the story you've told is quite special and quite interesting. So I think it's important that listeners can connect.
Yeah.
Thank
you, Rick. What's my handle?
You guys, this guy.
I knew that was coming.
I think if you look up Rudy Berger, you'll find him. But it's
Yes.
that burger.
Reindeer
And
that
mine
burger.
is pretty simple, Lynette Berger. Lynette Berger.
There we go.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and I want to say the same to you guys.
Yeah.
You guys are influencers in this space, and we appreciate
Really,
you guys
really
getting
grateful.
the voices out there and just communicating. I know that sometimes the age groups get left behind in many ways, and everything that you do to kind of spread the word on the things that are happening and
Much
what to pay attention to, it's much appreciated. So keep doing what you're doing, and also the best of luck to you, and we'll see you in a few months.
Yep, we're going to have fun. All right, guys. See you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Masters in Motion podcast. We'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us reach more listeners and grow our Masters community. Until next time, get bolder, not older.